Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to play you a 2-minute and 11-second clip that Emily created before the second retrial. So it should get you all kinds of caught up. In the meantime, my tech challenged husband's going to be touching on crap. So if you see his fat fingers in there, think nothing of it. Well, because he just can't stop touching shit. So I'm going to mute my mic and we'll unmute yours. But tell me when to pause if you have questions. But this should give you an overview of kind of what happened in the last trial.
The Commonwealth of Massachusetts is retrying Karen Read after the first jury was unable to reach a verdict in July of 2024.
I'm declaring a mistrial in this case.
They are accusing Karen Read of hitting her boyfriend, Boston police officer John O'Keefe, with her SUV after a night of drinking and then leaving him in the snow at 34 Fairview, where she eventually discovers him the next morning. That home is owned by another Boston police officer, and he and friends and family were having an after party there during the time when the Commonwealth alleges this to have happened. The defense is arguing that this investigation was incomplete and that Karen Read is being framed. She is being retried on 3 charges: murder, manslaughter, and hit and run causing death. Those are the same charges from the first trial. Karen Read on appeals has argued that the jury acquitted her of 2 of the counts she's standing retrial on. After the last trial, numerous jurors came forward and said that they had reached verdicts on counts 1 and 3 of not guilty, but those verdicts were never read in open court and a mistrial was declared on all charges. In between the mistrial on the last case and the beginning of jury selection in this case, Karen Read and her defense team have appealed to the Massachusetts Supreme Court and now have appealed to the United States Supreme Court, who has not decided yet if they will be taking up this matter. Making things even more complicated, the lead investigator in this case has been terminated between the last trial and this trial, due in part to his investigation in this case, and that is going to throw a wrench in the case for the Commonwealth. Although this is a retrial, it's not going to be the same trial. There are new lawyers on both sides, new experts that will be testifying, and the new special prosecutor for the Commonwealth is going to be bringing in Karen Read's numerous media statements to use against her in this trial, including those in a docuseries that aired after the last trial. This trial is estimated to last 6 to 8 weeks, so I guess it's time to bring the jury.
Okay, so do you feel like that gave you a good overview of what happened?
Yes, after the initial case, now we're looking at a second case. Sounds almost double jeopardy to me, but
well, that was kind of what the argument was that went in front of the appeals court, was that, so what wasn't mentioned in there is that the jury was not polled by the judge. So they kept saying that they were deadlocked, so forth. Well, she never asked were they deadlocked on all counts. She just declared a mistrial. So when the jury seen on social media and in the media that they couldn't come up with anything for all the counts, they came forward to the defense attorneys and was like, that's a lie. We acquitted her on second-degree murder, which is like the life in prison part that she's looking at. And the judge was like, I don't care. So then essentially they consider it to be the reason that they will not bring the jury in is because they're saying that that's how, like, they don't get involved in deliberating jury situations. And by doing so, it would kind of break that oath or whatever it is that they call it, that kind of that unspoken rule of we don't get involved in what happens in the jury room. But yeah, so it has been considered double jeopardy. So they were unclear also because the jury instructions were very wonky. So, but they are saying that, and she doesn't have a picture of it there, but did you happen to see the part where the size of her, oh, right here. Let me see if I can zoom in on this. I cannot. But you see this right here?
Ooh, I don't see what you're. Ooh.
It's this bottom picture. Let me see.
Oh yes, I see.
Okay, so you see this extremely large SUV?
Yes.
Okay. They're saying that hit her boyfriend and left him in the snow to die, is what they're saying, with only injuries like to his arm and the back of his head and so forth. But that she hit him hard enough to break the tail light on this SUV.
Which is highly unlikely.
Right. But this is the second time they're going to try her for it.
Yeah, which again, that sounds like if it's exactly the same charge, is double jeopardy.
Well, it could be, but it's not. So let me see if I can. So Google is going to take the blur off of this because apparently these are unsafe. Okay, let me do this. Okay, so that was done by the taillight of her Lexus SUV.
Yes, that's it doesn't look like that could be possible. Not even remotely possible, but I guess you can say that it does but there, yeah, I don't see how that could even be the first go-to whatsoever. I mean, you maybe say a knife or you know,
Okay, I'm going to show you something else.
a dog, as it says there.
Well, what was said by the dog expert is, I don't know if can you see my mouse?
Oh yes,
See these holes?
yes.
They look like front canine holes. See here?
Oh yes.
An untrained dog, which could be why he's no longer with the police department, would not have a controlled bite, is what the dog expert is saying. That there was some reason why they couldn't keep him with the PD. Like, so where a trained canine would grab and pull due to training, if it was untrained or there was something going on, like for the reason why it failed the canine academy, I don't know what to call it, then it would be an uncontrolled grabbing, not a controlled grabbing or whatever. So in this instance, it looks like maybe the paw, the couple nails were here to hold the arm while just rulingly, sorry, grabbing and dragging.
Yeah.
But see the puncture wounds here
Yes.
and here? Okay, so here's a different image of it. Can you see that?
Yes, I can.
That's even better. Can you see that better? So this is what the arm looks like. Okay, so now I'm going to show you something else. By the way, the Commonwealth says was done by a tail light. Okay, so however this tail light grabbed, oh, and he had a hoodie on. I did forget to mention that. He was wearing a hoodie as well.
Oh yes, because it's cold. Yes.
Yeah, he wouldn't wear an actual jacket because they said he was hard-headed that way, but he had on a hoodie, which actually, there's an image of it somewhere, but there's a single puncture hole the size of like the top of my pen here. Oh, you can't see because I'm blurred, but that looks like a tooth in. But let's go to here. Now this, I have to share here, share screen. Okay, so that is the tail light that did that damage to his arm. But now remember, this tail light was fully encased and not broken prior to it hitting his arm. So his arm had to hit the tail light, shatter it, and somehow, with the hoodie on, somehow pull back and make those marks on his arm.
I don't see anything that would cause a
Maybe this piece
puncture.
here. But now I'm also going to tell you that this car traveled from the scene of the crime back to the house, stayed overnight, left at 6 a.m. for her to go search for him. So it was hitting rocks and pavements and potholes and all the stuff after it was already broken, supposedly. Then was taken onto a tow truck, which most people know is like a bouncy, like the hydraulics on a tow truck makes the back end go like this. And then taken off of the tow truck, and then backed in or pulled into a Sallyport garage at the police station. And no pieces of tail light were found on the vehicle, the tow truck, the street, or anything. So, for some reason, the pieces of tail light that were shattered did not disperse along the path that she supposedly drove, or that they picked it up. But yet they say when it came into the Sallyport, this is what it looked like. I personally would think that each bump would cause small pieces of fragments to be on the bumper inside the light, because this is now hollow. So there's no pieces here. There are no pieces on him, on his clothing. Now, he was holding a cocktail glass, and they found a piece of cocktail glass right here in the frozen snow, supposedly. A single, like, eyelash type of hair stuck in the snow here. I guess maybe from his arm? They didn't DNA test it. And so we don't know what kind of hair it was. And it stayed there, by the way, traveling from the crime scene to the house. Then her car thawed in the garage, came out of the garage, went back looking for him, went on to a tow truck, from the tow truck into a Sallyport, where it thawed out, and that single piece of hair never left this spot.
Huh.
Yeah. Okay. So then there's that. Now, if I told you that she was reversing at 5, 6 in the morning to go look for him and hit his vehicle, so his vehicle was parked behind, like this. It's snowing. She's pulling out. She was also still slightly intoxicated hours later. And you can see her car flip that headlight. Oh, you can't see my finger on there. This side of her car flipped his car. You see the tire shift, and then she pulls forward. Could have possibly cracked her taillight.
That sounds very likely. If there's an object that doesn't move and you run into it with a car, it's going to.
And there's a video to prove that happened. And you can see when they do in a slow-mo, the tire on the Traverse, it was another SUV, sorry, shifts forward and back, just a smidge. She wasn't going 20 miles an hour and hit, so there's not really any damage to his vehicle, they were saying. But a frozen vehicle in a stationary position, she then clips like this same side of the vehicle, and cracks the tail light. They found pieces of that tail light in the driveway, where you can see her on Ring video, like showing someone else going, look at, I hit John's car pulling out and it cracked my freaking tail light. And she was pulling the straight pieces off and dropped them in the driveway. Now, they found the remaining pieces at the crime scene a week later.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. After the police took the car into possession, after the video came up missing from the Sallyport, and where they were with possession of the vehicle, and on the tow truck, it only looked like this part was white. Now it looks like this, and the pieces were found on same spot on the sidewalk, right there by the crime scene, over a week later, randomly.
Now, do they have a photo? Well, I guess it was already done before.
There might be photos of what?
Just before it was put on the tow truck.
In from the Ring video. But see, here's the problem with the ring video. Like, there's a ring video, which I can actually.
Like, what's this photo from?
This is from the police from the Sally Port.
Okay.
This is after they took possession of it and the crime scene investigator or whoever their crime person is came and started taking photos of it. So this photo is from the possession of. There's also a ring video showing her dad what happened to her tail light. So now the problem is that witness testimony saying that when they found John O'Keefe in the snow, Karen was out there screaming, "Oh my God, did I hit him? I hit him. I hit him. Could I have hit him?" She said, "Could I have hit him? Did I hit him?" Blah, blah, blah. They're saying that she said, "I hit him. I hit him. I hit him." And that is how she ended up arrested, supposedly.
Huh.
But I'm going to show you. Keep that up there for now. So I'm going to look at. Ignore that. To see if. Because she usually will.
It was.
So Emily will usually. Okay, well, I don't think that these helped any. Let me mute this. Hold on. Other than, like, I mean, she was pissed off, so you can kind of understand. But she looks like a crazy person. No offense. Okay, so let's see. I'll do this road so far, because this is day 3. And let me go here and here and share. Okay, can you see that? Okay.
Yes.
It is Thursday, April 24th, and we have not gotten through a ton of witnesses, but we've had some of the more important and longer witnesses in the first few days. So what witnesses will be up today? I don't know. We are still on the paramedic. Last trial by day 3, it was very clear that Lally was going in the order of who arrived on scene. That is not the order that we are seeing the Commonwealth go in. Will that be a good thing for the jury? I think having Carrie Roberts come in early, even with that cross-examination.
This one, let's do.
It's May 1st. I can't believe it's May, but today we are going to jump back in time. We're going to just hop in the TARDIS and all go.
You were talking about an argument that they had, and then she was upset, and you were paraphrasing her. And one of the things that you paraphrased was, in fact, your statement was she was upset that was like her last words to him, correct?
Like her last words to him.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Were you also made aware, did she tell you that her last words to him were in voicemails? Did she say that?
There it is.
She didn't give any details.
Did you ask her, what were your last words to him?
I did not.
Did she ever say whether or not she
Good
believed
questions for him.
he ever received her last words to him?
There's no other details. There was no other details other than what
Those
she
are
said.
good. That's a good line of questioning.
But she did, when she was having this conversation with you about her last words to him, she did actually take out her phone and show you a bunch of missed calls to him at the same time, didn't she?
She tried to, yes.
Okay.
Interesting.
In your mind, did you put 2 and 2 together that what she was actually talking about were the missed calls and her being upset about her last words to him, being very angry on those missed calls, those voicemails? Did you put those 2 things together?
I don't know if it'll cover it on here, but she called him a fucking pervert on a voicemail that she left to him as he was dying in the snow. So I think that the consensus there is that there's no way she knew she hit him, left him in the snow, and then called to tell me he was a fucking pervert.
Yeah.
That was kind of that one. Let's see what this was.
It is Monday, May 5th. We are in day 9.
Okay.
So when you get the containers, were they plastic cups?
Yes, they were red Solo cups.
And what was the purpose of using the red Solo cups?
They were plastic. They weren't going to leak. They weren't going to get soggy. They were large.
This is how they stored the evidence.
I needed a small sample. My thought was because it was frozen or coagulated, that we could
But they're plastic.
collect it, transport it, and transfer it to the crime lab, who could extract the DNA however they saw best fit.
Did the criminals come to your department? You bring the item to them?
They came to our department.
In addition to the glass, there was
other
plastic
stuff at your
cups
department,
with
wasn't there?
coagulated blood.
That's correct.
What did you do with those cups?
Those were placed in temporary evidence and placed in a refrigerated unit.
To carry them from Fairview to the police department, did you hold the actual cups or did you put them in something?
They put them in a bag.
They were stacked in a bag.
They were in a
What
bag.
type of bag?
It was a craft paper bag. In this particular case, we utilized a Stop and Shop bag.
Is that any different than a bag from the police department?
This made of the same paper, craft paper, the same size and dimension, other than Stop and Shop and evidence and probably price. They're basically the same bag.
Why did you use one of those rather than a bag that said evidence on it?
I don't know where that bag came from.
Really?
I was in a personal car. Sergeant Lank was in a Tundra. If that bag is upside down, you wouldn't know it didn't say evidence on it. I'm not sure where that bag came from.
If the
And the
bag's
plastic cups, do
upside,
you know what happened to those?
Yes, they were turned.
if the bag's upside down, it looks just like an evidence bag for the bottom. I understand that there were things they did not have on them, but it literally says Stop and Shop. Stop playing with me.
Isn't it true that you weren't interviewed in this case with regard to?
I just don't get how that would be evidence at that point. Like, I mean, times might be rough, in this economy, but the fact that they don't have, like, I would think that would be part, like, you have that in your own personal vehicle. And I understand you may not need to take, office supplies from work, but that would be something they would likely allow in this case, especially if you're supposed to show up in your own personal vehicle. You would have at least a damn bag. And
Technically, I think he would have office supplies in his car because he said that if it was upside down, you would assume it was an evidence bag. So what you're saying is that, okay, you don't have, evidence bags in your car, but why would he assume a paper bag upside down was an evidence bag and oops, it was just an accident?
But I don't know the whole chain of evidence in that manner. If it's a just random bag in your back seat would be sufficient compared to being packaged. Like, you would open up a plastic bag and then get the paper bag out, and then you would have, the vial or what have you, or whatever the container is inside of a bag instead of a.
What if I told you the chief of police lived across the street and he provided them with the red Solo cups in order to log their evidence? The chief of police, his boss. But he did not come out to help at the scene. Now, what if I told you that
it past his bedtime?
It was 6 a.m. and and his people were out there, and the cop that lived in the house, he didn't come out either. But yet they waited for first responders, which took quite a while due to road conditions and everything else, when there's a first responder across the street and a first responder in the house, and they didn't go get blankets from in the house, even though his sister-in-law was one of the people helping. She never thought to go knock on the door. She used baby blankets from out of her car, and they were trying to perform CPR rather than getting somebody that is trained in the house or across the street to help them with CPR. Yeah. But also they used to, so my thought was, if you obviously, to preserve the blood, it needs to remain cold, right? the snow was not going to go away. Why wouldn't you just leave it there until you could get proper evidence material for crime scene? Because wouldn't it be better for it to stay in the snow and cold than to take it out and put it into a heated vehicle? Because now, if new snow goes on top of it, that blood is a frozen block underneath there. And wouldn't that preserve it at a better rate than it would be to snow blow it, scoop it, solo cup it, and put it into a warm vehicle to store?
Yeah, I would have thought that waiting till someone with a proper, any other police officer that's coming on their way to the scene would have that proper.
Right. Well, they also were not, there wasn't like an issue of they knew whose blood it was, or they assumed they knew whose blood it was or whatever. But what was the urgency to get it out of there when they could have just, they never used crime scene tape though. So I guess they were worried about people walking on the lawn. Now, all the people, everybody was gone from the crime scene before the homeowners ever even knew what was going on. So
it sounded like they were all intoxicated, which I didn't think was really something that you did in that case. From what I've seen in the past, is that usually that is one of the requirements. There's not everybody intoxicated. Police, they usually aren't all just inebriated beyond belief. So, because you can be called up anytime, and especially as you can tell in this case, it sounds like.
Oh, ATF and everything were drinking and driving. And, but this was hours later. The party broke up by 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, which they all drove past his body and did not see it there. Yet they're saying that she hit him at 12:37 p.m. He was 6'1". And
so any of them could have honestly hit him, because it sounds like they were all drunk and driving.
That's actually a theory that no one's ever even mentioned. But yes, anybody could have actually clipped him at some point. Now, here's one of her docu-series clips that, it doesn't seem, because they also pick and choose which ones they want. But hold on.
I gave an interview with ABC with Matt Gutman. I think this was whom I gave the interview to. And I said, he asked, why was I saying, could I have hit him? Did I hit him? And I said, yeah, my first thought was I'd been out late. I'd been drinking. And he's in the general vicinity of where I last saw him. I mean, they talk about the left side of the property and the right as if it's, Hammersmith Farms. It's a postage stamp. It's 50 feet. So he's in the front yard to the left of the front door, and no one's coming out of the house. Jen's telling me nobody's seen him. So I'm thinking, Jesus, was I starting to pull away and I ran over his foot? Like, he's roughly where I left him. So yeah, when I found him, I was thinking, did I clip him somehow? So when John got out of the car at Bryan Albert's house, he took my full vodka soda, which is sitting in the cup holder.
So these are the phone calls on the 29th.
So those were the uncut footage from the interviews that she did prior to the second trial coming about. So since she can't testify, or likely won't testify, they're using these as her own testimony. So these are all of the calls that she made that night that she supposedly knows that she hit him and left him there to die. 33, 34, 34, 35.
So at 12:35 a.m., the defendant. 12:35, the defendant calls John. It's not answered. 12:36:09 a.m., the defendant calls John. It's not answered.
Trooper Green.
To the Wi-Fi Hats Fan 123.
Are you familiar with the router at Mr. O'Keefe's home?
Depending on what.
So it's showing that she was connected to the Wi-Fi router at his house, and still making these calls. Her car was still connected to his Wi-Fi router at home.
One, it's connecting to which band? It's either the defendant calls John, it's not answered. 12:39:03 a.m., the defendant calls John, it's not answered. 12:39:37 a.m.
I thought they played the voicemail. Oh, here it is.
Email for 12:37:08.
Try this one first. That one I think.
At 12:30, should be.
So that was one of the voicemails that she left him after knowing she hit him and left him there. But her phone shows that she was connected at home. They're saying that he was hit by her car at like 12:37.
How far does she live from him?
How far is his house? Because she lives in a whole nother town. She was staying at his house. Well, in this conditions and everything, I think it was a 7 to 9 minute drive or something like that. And they see her on public library video, like of the street of her driving past. So they have that timestamp.
So they know that the time doesn't line up.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody can math then? Is that what I'm getting? Like, it sounds like there's no way
So
to...
here's the fifth voicemail that she left.
At 1:10:17 a.m., the defendant calls John. Voicemail number 5 is left with voice.
Ms. Gilman?
Yeah, it's 1 in the morning. I'm with your fucking niece and nephew. You fucking pervert. You're a fucking pervert.
Okay, I shouldn't laugh, but it's kind of funny. Here's the other one.
With voice.
Ms. Gilman?
John, I'm going home. I cannot babysit your niece. I need to go home. You are fucking using me right now. You're fucking another girl. Kim's sleeping next to me. You're a fucking loser. Fuck yourself.
Okay, does that sound like someone that knows that she hit him and left him in the snow to die?
It just sounds like a normal
I don't say the secret.
lady.
Yeeted from YouTube. You'll be the most hated man on the internet.
No, whenever you're intoxicated and, you know, there's misunderstandings, you're probably going to get these kind of voicemails. So it doesn't sound like she knows.
His ex-girlfriend also lived a couple houses down from that house party. So I think
normal situation.
There.
And you know, and those kind of whatever relationships or whatever. So it sounds pretty normal. I don't see how they can see this as like she killed him and this, that, and the other, whatever. Like, it sounds like.
Yeah, well, who would hit somebody, know she left them out there, and then leave that kind of voicemail? Why would she call at all? Why wouldn't she just go on home?
Yeah. Yeah, this just sounds like an angry.
The defendant calls John, not answered. 5:25:28 a.m. The defendant calls John, not answered. 5:26:14 a.m. The defendant calls John.
That's number 6.
At 1 on, not answered.
My damn. Yeah, this is
wonky.
At 5 calls John, not answered. 5:36:29 a.m.
Oh, that's the one where she called John, and that's when she realized his body was on the lawn and just left her phone laying in the seat. So it was an open line. And you can hear the other witness, like person that was there, Jen McCabe, like calling 911, and she's sitting in the car in the heater, like, and everything. And she's saying a man is on the lawn rather than telling dispatch that there's an officer laying in the lawn. And everyone thought that that was odd because she knew he was a police officer.
But they could tell who it was?
Well, she knew when Karen jumped out of the car, she said, "There's John."
Oh.
And she knows John's a police officer, a Boston cop. So why didn't she tell dispatch? She's like, my friend's boyfriend. Like, it was weird because his best friend did the same thing. She's like, my friend's boyfriend, like, didn't come home last night. Is he in the hospital? You know, like that kind of thing. The fact that they never said a Boston cop, because as we all know, had they like said Boston cop, there probably been more urgency to get dispatchers and everything out there, like first responders. But they just said a man, which is kind of odd because I'm sure when you get pulled over, then you drop John O'Keefe, oh, my friend, Boston cop John O'Keefe, to see if you can get out of this ticket you just got, hypothetically, like, but it wasn't a thought for some urgency to name drop at that moment to be like, he's a Boston cop, John O'Keefe, like, we have a dead cop or a possibly dead cop or a very injured cop on the lawn. Like, I would think that would kind of, let's say the old lady stuck in the ditch. I have a feeling the old lady stuck in the ditch is getting the rookie that's on that night, while everybody from lieutenants and police chiefs, I'm sure somebody would pick the phone up and call the police chief across the street and been like, there's a dead cop outside. Like, I don't know. I think there's some urgency, but behind not just somebody laying in the yard, but the fact that also they didn't mention that he was laying on another cop's lawn,
which is quite strange. Sounds like as well.
Right. So anyway, okay. So
it seems like there's more distancing towards the fact that it's an officer. Who it is, on another officer's lawn, right across from the chief, like all that. It seems more distance, like, oh, that's not anything, not a big deal. But the lady that's been calling 50-something times, yelling at the person that she supposedly knowingly ran down or whatever,
is hysterical.
Yeah, is now. Like listening to the conversation, it sounded like more of like a young couple thing, but whatever.
Well, because he went in the house,
jealousy and all that stuff,
Well, because they had a trip to Aruba a week prior, and she thought she'd seen him hooking up with an old fling there. So it was kind of, and then they were fighting earlier in the day, so forth, so on. But then also the other thing is that he was supposed to. She said that something didn't feel right, so she sent him in to make sure that they were welcome there. And then he never came out, so she thought he went in there, started drinking with them, and forgot to tell her, come on, it's good, or don't. And so she was pissed off because she's just sitting in the car waiting. He's not answering his phone. He's not answering his text. And so essentially when she left there, it was, fuck you. If you don't want to fucking come out here and tell me, yeah, we're welcome, you're going to start partying without me? Okay. Fuck off. So that's kind of how that started there. But yeah, so it was kind of, but the funny thing is when they were asking who the homeowner was, the sister-in-law, well, nobody mentioned, but that the homeowner was a Boston cop. It wasn't until like 11 o'clock in the morning when investigators called or something that they decided to tell them whose house it was. But even when investigators were out there, not one time did they mention that it was a Boston cop's house, which is kind of weird. And he's a first responder. He could have helped sooner. He also probably could have picked up his radio and called dispatch and got in through a whole different line than them calling. Like, I mean, I watch plenty of cop shows, and they all the time, this is officer so-and-so, badge number, blah, blah, blah. And it's a whole different 911 dispatch, which I have to assume that 911 was probably pretty jammed up if they're having like a vortex-like blizzard.
Yeah. So, yeah, it just sounds to me like there was, a lot of distancing and, surprisingly well, it sounds like for how everybody found it's like they were drinking a lot. And the fact that they were able to coherently cover this up. So it's probably not the first time, it sounds like.
Well, that's
it's probably a pretty...
It's not the first time that this has happened or whatever. It's just the first time that it's being called out or whatever. Because most of the time, whoever this happens to, they don't have the resources to fight it. So she is actually out on bond on a second-degree murder charge. But she was a professor at one of the universities there, a financial, anyway, she worked for Fidelity, I believe. Don't quote me on that. And then became a professor. She's got MS and stuff like that, like some other health things, but she's a professor at like one of the big colleges there or universities there. And so I guess she ended up selling her house, having to drain her 401k for all this and whatnot.
Yeah, it seems.
And has a GoFundMe that is over $1 million, I think, at this point.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and her attorneys are working for free at this point. So, and she added more attorneys on. And yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like it's more on the fact that there's a lot of corruption, it seems like, in this case. Just from
enough that the FBI got involved and investigated the police department and the state police.
Yeah, that makes sense. They need to do some internal investigation for sure.
So now there's no longer a case there, but they sent the information to the defense.
Yeah, they need to even off of like this case, they need to really investigate that department. It sounds like there's a lot of corruption and.
Well, I think most of them have retired now.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know that there's much to investigate. I think there's a new chief of police. I believe that the mayor's new. One of the brothers sits on the city council board. And I believe that, they've either been transferred or... Well, I know right now there's a couple of them that are considered missing witnesses that the defense has filed on. Mm-hmm.
They can end up ran over too. Jeez.
I don't know. No, she still has her other tail light. Speaking of, which I have been wondering this, and then Emily actually answered it. I can't tell you on which stream. I should probably take better note of this. But so the vehicle, I'm actually going to Google this real quick while I'm telling it to you. That she had was a 2011, no, I'm lying, 2021. This happened in January 29th of 2022. The vehicle she had was a Lexus 570, so remember that for me, an LX 570. So Lexus, but a 2021 had like 12,000 miles on it. Lexus LX, I think that's what that says, 570. Okay, so the Lexus one, I'm glad I didn't share my screen there. Okay, so it retails for like, well, this one's saying 17,000 miles as a 23. Okay, so if it was like a brand new one, 93,000. Okay, today, 75,000. Okay, so it's very expensive.
That too. That's funny.
Huh?
I was just thinking, I was like, it's probably about $75,000 for that car.
Okay,
but
so that would be today. So we're just going to say that she paid in 2022 probably about $70,000 or financed it, whatever, for about $75,000, right? Do you know they took that vehicle and she still don't have it? At this point, there's no seats and crap left in it. Like it's been ransacked, like if they like searched her home or something. But so if someone asked what happens to that car or whatever, and it's evidence that she doesn't get it back.
Oh, it's the same thing. If someone gets shot, you're not getting that gun back, until.
I don't know if you can say that on YouTube.
Oh, well.
I won't believe you.
Like even if it's,
Well, right. I knew that about
whatever.
Evidence. Unless you become, I thought if you were found not guilty or whatever, that you could go and retrieve the evidence, which, okay, at this point she could retrieve the evidence, but not in pieces.
Right.
So what would it matter? They also took her phone. So there's that. She had to go get a new phone. Now I'm sure when this is all over, there's a lawsuit against the city.
Oh yeah. She's going to make out.
Yeah. But,
if it goes in her favor, of course, but, you know, things tend to get a little murky when it comes to those kind of situations, especially when everybody knows each other, related to each other. Those kind of matters.
Right.
So.
Well, they'll have to go essentially over their heads and go to Boston versus going to like Canton.
Yeah, she might want to go a little further, but that's not up to her, of course.
Well, I don't know if her attorneys are going to want to keep working for free, but I guess if they want to recoup some of their money, they absolutely will. But yeah, she has a whole team. She has more attorneys this time than she did last time. But here's what this SUV, let me see, I'll share this. To give you a better idea of what, this is not her SUV for the record. It is an image, stock image of the SUV. So this is the SUV, and this is the tail light right here that came in contact with John O'Keefe and then did all of that damage to his arm, and that his arm broke. By the way, he was not Arnold Schwarzenegger.
He was what?
He was not Arnold Schwarzenegger. There was nothing rock hard going on there.
Do you mind zooming in a little bit right there?
Let me see.
I actually thought the windshield wiper, the motor portion up there, was on like vice versa, but it looks like it's on the left-hand side. That's what my thought was, that you could possibly get by saying like the scrape, like if it hit his arm on that motor portion, which is metal compared to the.
Hold on, let me remove and then reshare because I don't know why I didn't share. Stop share. Share screen.
I brought it closer to me.
Oh, because it was a different tab. That's why it did it. Okay.
So you see how it does have a plastic covering there, but that would be the only part, is the windshield wiper on the back.
Yeah, what about it?
So that's what my thought was, that if you were stating that something cut would be metal, and my thought was possibly those two deep cuts or something, or even
that was covered in snow or would have been moving.
But the motor itself, if metal, like the metal fact on those, they're a little
right, but it was intact.
Yeah, so that's even more.
So that's not an option. The only part that had damage on her vehicle would be this part here.
Which, if you hit someone, I would think it would push you away. So that's my thought, is that you get pushed away.
He was also on a incline.
Yeah, that is just like
and drunk. I still don't understand how his body would have hard enough to crack or break the tail light. That's the part that I can't get past. So if I was on the jury, for me, there's reasonable doubt, because it doesn't make sense of how, like, no one's used a crash dummy, like, or like on Mythbusters, how they would make those molds or whatever that was essentially like as close to a human body as possible or whatever.
Well, you could use those, whatever like where they essentially crush it. I can't think of what it is. And see how many newtons it would take to cause it to fracture and all that scientific portion of it. But
you're trying to make the jury go to sleep, so nobody's trying to do all that.
But the fact that if it was like, okay, that he needs to be hit with a force.
Oh, they did do that.
Oh, so they did?
Yeah, but I think their math was wrong, and then it became, in the words of Emily, a nerd off of who knew physics better than the other. And I do know that Newton's law of something or another came up in play, and then that's where I tuned out. But something or another, inertia, this and that, at a moving rest and resting moving, and I don't know, don't ask me. But either way, a vehicle hitting or tapping or even whatever, cracking this makes more sense. But that happened after he was supposedly left in the snow. I cannot imagine, even, like I said, maybe Arnold Schwarzenegger's arm, but John O'Keefe. Let me show you a picture of John O'Keefe while.
Well, the fact that she did hit something, they know.
That should have been enough for the prosecuting attorney to be like, I'm out.
No, well, the thing is, if she hit him first, then hit the.
So do you think it weakened it? Like, if it were possible, Because, by the way, we're going to get eaten alive the minute that someone thinks that we're saying she actually did it. Like, which, by the way, was not me. He said that.
I got you. Have to play devil's advocate.
On the internet with you. You're on your own, sir, on your own. But
you have to bring up the right portion. You have to go through what others would think is their right.
Right. Yeah. You can be the most hated man in America, on the internet, across the country, in the world, alone, not with me. So anyway, but I think that it's always a possibility. Like, it's possible she did it, but then proving she did it, they're not doing a great job of it. And that's kind of what the thing is. I mean, there's a couple other cases that I think, did you prove beyond a reasonable doubt? No. Is it possible that you did it? Possibly, but you didn't do a good job proving it. So at this point, I don't know how the jury got there other than just general hate. But
I would it sounds more like somebody, like if you want to use he was hit with a car, it would be probably by one of the other agents or officers that were driving there, could just as well, if not more likely, to have done it. But
so that's John O'Keefe. Now, of course, that's his. I don't know how long ago that picture was taken or whatever, but I don't know that he has Arnold Schwarzenegger type of arms that was going to be cracking. Now, here is my theory that might actually get me booted from the internet. So she said that he got out of her car with a cocktail glass. They found the cocktail glass. Like, she actually says that there was a piece of glass in his nose. Then when she pulled it out, blood just started coming out of it, right? And and it was like a tiny sliver of glass that could have come from a cocktail glass, right? Mm-hmm. Or possibly did. There's a piece of cocktail glass at the base of, like, the bumper of her car. They found later after the snow melted or whatever. The police did. So anyway, okay, so I'm thinking, like, with this glass or whatever, this glass is like thicker than a cocktail glass, but the bottom of it is a lot thicker. And so let's say that she was calling and texting while he was in the house. He didn't answer. He was just going to walk back out and tell her. Now, there's other evidence that proves that this is probably very unlikely due to the fact that people that pulled up and didn't pull up. So whatever. But let's just say in an ideal situation, and she's pulling off and he's like yelling her name. Well, she says in one of her interviews that she had her music up really loud. So it's very possible. That's why she thought maybe when she backed up some, she had slightly clipped him or wouldn't have heard him, whatever. So if he's drunk, they'd already been arguing or fighting prior. Then it seems like on bar video that they were perfectly fine. But then they get there. Now she's texting him, calling, blowing up his phone like, you're just leaving me out here kind of thing. She decides, fuck this, I'm leaving. The heater's blasting, the radio's or music's blasting, and she's pulling off and he's yelling her name, Karen, right? And throws the glass at her car to get, like, pissed off, right? To kind of get her attention. And he hits the tail light with it. Then that could have caused the tail light to break. He could have then slipped and fell and hit the back of his head, whatever. But I would think that it's more likely that had he thrown the glass at the car, pissed off, you know what I'm saying? Like, to get her attention, whatever. Not that it was a reasonable get her attention, but, pissed off, threw it at the car, hit the taillight. I could see then that the taillight was broken.
Now, you said it's on a hill.
Well, not a hill. It's just a slight incline. Like, they called it a berm. I don't know if you know what that is.
Okay,
but,
yeah. So
it was about 4 inches. So when he stepped off of it, it would have been higher than what he would have been in the grass, supposedly. I don't know. Like, the pictures aren't that great.
Oh, of the yard?
Mm-hmm.
Because, if he was walking around the car or whatever.
And she's still pulling off.
Like, right, that would be just like everything lines up terribly in the situation. Where he's coming out after she's been waiting a long time to finally say, hey, come in.
Mm-hmm.
Or he's just like, okay, I got to go get to her or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then when he's walking out, then she backs up.
And she hits the glass.
The glass hits up again, whatever, breaks on the car, who cares, whatever.
No, like I said,
falls down in the burn, hits his
and hits
head
his head.
or whatever, and then now he's kind of like,
And he technically wasn't dead because they say hypothermia is what killed him.
so it might have been just
But
like in
the
that
problem
aspect.
is someone
But-
pulled up behind her. Nobody's seen him ever enter the house. And people left from that area multiple times and never seen him laying in the snow there. There's a lot of butt dials and inappropriate butt dials, this, that, and another. I mean, there's all kinds of things. So that's why I said the evidence going on, the things that they know for sure going on around that time doesn't fully support it, because then the car that pulled up behind her would have seen him come out and hit the car, but they never seen him come out. Nobody in the house ever seen him go in. But that's the only thing I could think that would break the tail light like that, would be possibly him throwing it at the car. Because they found the cocktail glass broken around him. So we will leave that one right there, and then I will find the other clips for later. But that makes you.
It'll leave everybody with something to think about.
Well, that's what this whole trial is. That's what I was going to say. And like most days, you're left with, Anyway, so we'll see. We'll use the next clip. Also, there's the expert that has no degree for 17 years. And the snotty little cop that got drug in there for lying to the FBI, but wasn't a lie. It was some kind of memory. I can't remember. Yeah, so there's all that as well. But my question always is, could an arm break the tail light? That's all I need to know.
I mean,
I don't think it's possible.
I would say hit it with a bat. If you could break it with a bat, you might be able to do it with an arm. That would be, that would be the most basic of things to see if that is a thick enough tail light that it would be, you would have to just wail on it to actually break it.
Well,
And it wasn't at 24 miles per hour or whatever
In
they're trying to
snow.
say. In snow. Yeah.
So many feet. Yeah. Well, nobody has yet to decide to reenact getting hit by a car to see if they could break a tail light.
Yeah.
But at this point, he wasn't a gym rat. Even as a gym, like I said, I personally think it's hard to fathom that part, which I think that if you can't fathom that part, then you can't fathom any of it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, the fact that you can be pushed by the snow, like when you're,
it would have
you
been
don't
ice.
have,
Actually, it was ice. It had not quite. The weather guy, that expert that came on, said it was a cat's track. You could track a cat by the snow, so essentially you could see their footprints in there. So it was just a light dusting at that point. So I don't know, but we'll see. Okie dokie. Bye.